Alright, gang, you are sprawled on a shag carpet in 1984. Your best friend's basement smelling like microwave pizza rolls and that weird musty smell paneled basements had in the 80s. The guy at the video store, the one with the Iron Maiden patch on the entire back of his jean jacket, just slipped you something from behind the counter. Something without the original case, just a hand-labeled sleeve that says Unhinged. And while everyone else was renting whatever just left the theater, there was this whole shadow library of horror that never even had a release. And man, you were in heaven. Today we're counting down 6 films that slip through the cracks of mainstream horror but burrow deep into the brains of kids who grew up knowing that the best scares came from the bottom shelf. Stay tuned because there's a scene among all these flicks that to me is just a brilliant standout, and I'd be interested to know if you guys agree. Alright man, let's get into it. Look, the trailer isn't really doing any favors for this flick, but oh man, it's a super fun ride. 1977's Shock by Mario Bava is widely known to be his last film, but stay tuned to see if that is actually true or if that honor goes to another Bava title. The late 70s and early 80s were crazy, no doubt. Remember when your parents got divorced and suddenly you had to deal with a new stepdad who seemed just a little too interested in bonding? I sure as hell do. Mario Bava's final film takes that anxiety and elevates it into pure psychological torment, following a young boy who moves into a new house with his mom and her new husband, only to become possessed by the spirit of his dead father, who may have been murdered in that very home. The kid starts acting out in violent and impulsive ways, wielding straight razors, having visions of his mother and compromising positions, and you're never quite sure if it's supernatural possession or just a child's mind fragmenting under trauma. And man, did Bava love that ambiguity. This one was shot in 1977 on a tiny budget with Bava's own son Lamberto serving as assistant director, and this actually did become the elder Bava's swan song. It's a claustrophobic flick that traded his usual gothic flair for intimate domestic horror that feels like Roman Polanski's Repulsion filtered through Italian giallo blood-covered lenses. The film's genius lies in how it makes you question whether the supernatural elements are real or just the visual manifestation of a family dissolving in real time, with young David Collins Jr.'s unnerving performance selling every moment of creeping dread. Though this really was the last film Mario Bava made, it was not the last film of his that was released. That honor lies with Rabid Dogs, which was released much later in 1998. And if demonic possession through parental trauma sounds intense, wait until you meet a family whose wilderness vacation becomes a survival nightmare that makes deliverance look like a church picnic. Cue the banjos.
You're scared of me.
Somebody has stolen the goddamn boots!
Somebody's stolen the boots! Now you've got to stick with this one because it might not be about boots, but it's a compelling trailer nonetheless. You convinced your dad to rent this because the box art showed guys in the woods and he assumed it was a hunting movie, and man, it's not even close. We're about to hear about the flick that Justin Kurswell of the slasher film website The Hysteria Lives said, "Not since Deliverance has the wilderness held such terror." That's ominous. 5 doctors head into the Canadian wilderness for a week-long hiking trip, only to find themselves systematically hunted by an unseen assailant who leaves bizarre totems and mutilated animal corpses as calling cards, initially stealing their boots and forcing them to trek barefoot through hostile terrain while picking them off one by one. Hal Holbrook, whose salary was about 1/6 of the entire budget, leads the pack with that weathered authority he brought to pretty much everything. And director Peter Carter shoots the wilderness like it's an active, malevolent force, every shadow concealing something that wants these men dead for reasons that build towards a gut-punch revelation about medical malpractice and revenge. Think like Casualties of War meets Southern Comfort. The film's wilderness setting, the Cauldron of the Moon, was shot in a stretch of Ontario wilderness that had been burnt out by a forest fire about 5 years earlier than this film. And plenty of the charred trees left from the fire can be seen in the film and make an appearance in a sweeping shot towards the third act. Made for under $1 million Canadian dollars, I don't know, that's like 38 USA dollars, this predates the Blair Witch Project by 2 decades in understanding how isolation and paranoia can be more terrifying than any monster, with practical effects that include genuinely cringe-inducing Rambo-esque self-surgery scenes that'll make you grateful for modern anesthesia. The film flopped hard, but became a word-of-mouth legend among viewers who appreciated how it turned masculine testosterone into a liability more than anything. Watching these educated professionals devolve into scared animals. This entire flick was shot in continuity, and the scene where they're trudging through the swamp was done all in one take. But honestly, who would want to do that twice? Speaking of things that should probably stay buried, our next film proves that twisted family dynamics can be even more dangerous than vengeful wilderness phantoms.
Silent. Deadly.
Just tell me what you want.
I want you to kill my stepmother.
You know, that silent but deadly had me thinking this was all about farting, but I honestly feel a little cheated here. This is 1982's Julie Darling, and your older sister's brother's boyfriend brought this over thinking it was some kind of teen romance based on the title, but it turns out it's about a 14-year-old sociopath who has more than a hand in her mother's death and through cold-blooded manipulation makes short work of her stepmother as well. This one makes The Bad Seed look like an after-school special, and watching this movie play out is a masterclass of tension. Stick around to find out what aspects made the Daily News call it a fairly tight little sleaze thriller. And oddly enough, sleaze thriller was my high school girlfriend's nickname all through senior year. Isabel Mejas plays Julie with this unsettling mix of childlike innocence and calculated cruelty, pouting and scheming her way through a plot that involves seducing her own father, psychologically, thankfully, gaslighting everyone around her, and orchestrating violence with the calm efficiency of a mob enforcer while maintaining her daddy's little girl facade. Anthony Franciosa, or I'm not going to say Franciosa, that's ridiculous. Forever typecast as Anthony Franciosa plays the oblivious father who's marrying hotties left and right, but can't see that his daughter is a monster, even as bodies pile up around him. And the Canadian-German co-production gives everything this weird, dislocated quality where you're never quite sure what country you're in or what moral universe operates here. It was shot in Montreal, but it was set in some nameless North American city. The film tanked commercially and earned comparisons to better exploitation films of the time. But there's something genuinely unnerving about watching a child weaponize adult desire and parental guilt with such laser precision. And the rifle didn't hurt either, nor did the shotgun. The climax, that I won't ruin more than I already have, delivers exactly the kind of transgressive punch that made video store clerks warn you at that checkout. And if you thought daddy issues were dark, buckle up for a movie where the family reunion involves axes and a whole lot of unresolved resentment.
There. Take a good look.
It began as an idyllic weekend outing, but something went wrong. I
don't feel cheated here at all. It 100% looks like something definitely went wrong there. 3 women have a car accident in the woods during a rainstorm and wake up in a decaying mansion owned by a reclusive woman and her psychologically damaged daughter. Which sounds like standard gothic horror until the final act reveals a twist so insane that it earned this thing a spot on the UK's video nasty list, despite being more psychologically disturbing than graphically violent. But man, there are a few scenes that are wildly visceral, and this flick lets your mind run wild. Keep in mind, this flick came out slightly before Sleepaway Camp, and stay tuned to find out why that even matters. The film crawls along with deliberate pacing, and that tests your patience. There's long shots of the woman exploring the house, there's super awkward dinner conversations, a gratuitous shower scene or two that feels mandatory for 1982, before exploding into a blood-soaked finale involving a Sith-wielding killer whose identity recontextualizes everything you just watched. Director Don Gronquist shot this in Portland, Oregon for about $100,000, using his own house for interiors and recruiting local theater actors who deliver performances ranging from competent to wondering if they knew the camera was even rolling. Nearly every single person involved with the film were locals from Portland. And while the line delivery can be pretty stiff at times, this regional horror flick is for sure doing its best. The British censors seized and destroyed copies for years, not because of the violence, which is brief but pretty brutal, but because of the sexual ambiguity underlying the revelation, a moral panic that only increased its cult status among collectors willing to track down Canadian VHS releases. I mean, for sure there are more than one needless shower scene, but I am not sure any shower scene is really needless. Either way, it's slow, it's cheap, and that insane jaw-dropping twist ending will either make you respect its audacity or throw something at your TV. There's really no middle ground here. The film got a lot of grief from critics due to the amount of dialogue for what it is. And I'll agree, it's like Hemingway scripted a slasher, but the payoff was great for me. If you're over 50 and have trouble seeing at night, this one will test you. Man, I felt 85% of the scenes were filmed in a dark closet. From psychological unraveling to biological horror, our next entry proves that sometimes the scariest thing isn't a mass killer. It's what's slithering under your skin.
Marion! Marion!
I see him. He's changing. He's blue.
When the title is Spasms and the trailer literally starts with spasms, it really does seem like they're locked in on this one. Oliver Reed, fresh off a career lull and clearly needing a paycheck, stars as a psychic who shares a telepathic link with a giant Indonesian snake demon that's being shipped to America for scientific study. And yes, it's exactly as bonkers as that sounds. This is right in between 1954's Anaconda and 1997's Anaconda, and neither have the twist this one trumped up. Oliver Reed spasms and convulses every time the serpent kills someone, experiencing their deaths through his mystical connection with the serpent. Reed reportedly showed up drunk for most of his scenes, but was still blowing through the script as the wealthy adventurer obsessed with capturing the creature that killed his brother years ago in the jungle. The snake is portrayed through a combination of terrible puppetry, stock footage of actual snakes, and some surprisingly decent creature effects by Japanese artist Kiyoshi Yamazaki, creating a visual inconsistency where the monster changes size and appearance between shots like it's going through puberty. Director William Fried, who made the excellent Funeral Home, seems completely lost with the material on this one, and the Canadian tax shelter financing shows in every corner-cutting decision. From the obvious studio sets pretending to be Indonesian jungles, to the support cast of Toronto theater actors doing their best with dialogue like, "The serpent knows you're here. The serpent knows you're here." Critics understandably savaged this one. Variety called it lethargic and silly, but there's something hypnotic about watching two once great actors give zero effort while a rubber snake waddles around killing people in a plot that involves ancient curses, telepathic bonds, and absolutely no internal logic. But it's got Peter Fonda, man. Now for sure that's Poison Ivy, but let's stick with this scene a bit and see how it plays out, because this aesthetic is right up my alley. A longer version of the ending fight between Oliver Reed and the giant snake was planned and actually filmed. It included parts where he stabs the snake and the snake swallows his arm, but due to the problems with effects, the scene was not finished and had to be cut. The production ran out of money before shooting was finished, and the final scene was heavily padded with flashback sequences in an effort to lengthen the film to a respectable runtime. After watching a man physically connected to a demon snake, we're ending with a director who understood that true horror doesn't need supernatural elements, just a child's innocent eyes witnessing something they can never unsee. Oh man, that escalated wildly. Finding a good trailer for this was hard. I threw some music in there just to cover that up, but that's a good time. Your hot babysitter rented this thinking it was a slasher flick because of the title, and technically, she was right. But not before sitting through nearly an hour of relationship drama masquerading as horror. A bunch of wealthy New Yorkers head to an upstate farmhouse for a weekend of adultery, nose candy, and slowly building tension before someone in a creepy mask starts introducing them to farm equipment in about the worst way you'd want to be introduced to it. Originally titled The Killer Behind the Mask as well as Upstate Murders, stick around to see how this film connects to Blade Runner as well as Deadwood. The killer wears an unsettling, creepy mask, and the point-of-view shots feel like an early blueprint for what Friday the 13th would popularize years later. But the film's real interest lies in how it portrays class anxiety and the sexuality of the late 70s, with everyone cheating on everyone else while a Vietnam vet lurks around radiating instability. But don't lose the plot and all that heady back and forth. This is the first nude scene of Caitlin O'Haney. Filmed in 1976 but not released until 1979 after sitting on a shelf, never a good sign. This thing bounced between distributors who had no idea how to market a movie that's part relationship drama, part proto-slasher, with scenes of emotional infidelity getting more screen time than actual murders. Director David Paulson never directed another feature, and you can maybe see why. The pacing is pretty glacial until suddenly, man, it's not. And William Sanderson, taking roles in Blade Runner and Deadwood later in his career, delivers a performance as a suspected killer that's so twitchy and off-putting you assume he's guilty just from his vibe. The deaths, when they finally arrive, are nasty enough though. Power drills, boats, that old standby of rural horror, the classic pitchfork. But by that point, you've spent so much time watching affluent people be terrible to each other that you're almost rooting for the maniac. Like, speed it up, let's get him done.
I bet it's that tiny little thing that your mother sucks on every night before she puts you to bed.
This is the scene I mentioned earlier on. The setup throughout Bava's 1977 shock basically led to this scene, which I believe captures the entire concept of this flick. When I first saw it, man, I was blown away, and seeing just this clip is what made me track this one down. There is something iconic, gritty, sleazy, and even romantic in 70s and 80s horror. Check out our 70s and 80s horror movie playlist, where we have covered well over 300 unique titles from the golden era of horror. Some well known, some wildly forgotten, and I guarantee even more that you have likely never even heard of. These weren't designed to spawn sequels or move merchandise. They were made by filmmakers who had a vision, a 2026 mortgage-sized budget, and access to practical effects that look charmingly tactile compared to today's CGI smoothness. Let me know what we need to unearth and share from the mid to late 70s era. Slashers, creatures, whatever. I'm down for the grit and sleaze that seem to give way to the 80s excess. I'm in my 70s mode, gang. Thanks for watching, everyone. I love you guys. I honestly do. This is great fun. As always, stay cool.